Hey, welcome to Unlatched Mind. My guests today are Steve Murphy and Javier Pena. Steve and Javier are the two DEA agents really credited with bringing down Pablo Escobar. You may be familiar with the Narcos series on Netflix. That series was in part modeled after, Steve and Javier. Obviously their story is incredible. Many of you know the story already. Who hasn't heard of Pablo? They will talk about their career in the DEA. We'll talk about Pablo's influence on the world, really what motivated him, how he was fair, how brutal his regime was. That's one thing that I was a little surprised with. You hear brutality and Mexican drug cartel, and you're thinking, well, no kidding. But Pablo's regime, Pablo, he really brought it to the next level. Anyway, yeah, we talk about what motivated him, how he was loved by some, believe it or not, his political aspirations, and we just really talk about the entire thing. So let's just jump in. Steve Murphy and Javier Pena. Javier, Steve, thank you guys so much for your time. Seriously, your story's incredible. I'm sure you're sick of. I mean, I don't know if you're sick of telling it, but it's a blessing and a curse, I guess. Your career and everything that happened. But I guess I've already introduced really who you are, the backstory. Not again, like I don't really think you guys need that a ton, but one thing what we could do to start would help me is I don't know really how long you guys were DEA. When you really got introduced to the case. What the timeline of Pablo really was, because obviously he was a quote unquote bad guy before he was the capital P Pablo, the guy we all know, the infamously know. So I guess what was the overall timeline between the Pablo thing when you got assigned it and all that? I mean, just the backstory to start to lay the groundwork.
Yeah, okay, I'll go first. Yeah, I
Sure.
get to Columbia in 1988, and I'm in Austin, Texas. I get hired in DEA 1984, so I was assigned to Austin, Texas. In 1988, I wanted to go foreign because I wanted to see how the real big league traffickers worked. So I
Hmm.
put in, I really wanted to go to Mexico. There was a mistake in my paperwork, and I got selected for Colombia. So that's why I get there in '88, and I'm there about a month, and my boss pretty much says, "Oh, you're going to work Pablo Escobar investigation," and I did not know who Escobar was.
Mm.
So I quickly learned. So we're looking at 1988, and we talked about this as the first search, against Pablo Escobar because of the surrender, the escape, and then the second search where Steve and I really hooked up. So
Yeah.
the timeline is '88 and helping out. There was a search block, and basically the experiences where I'd be there for 2 or 3 days, come back to Bogota. Not like the second search where we were living with the Colombia National Police. So
Hmm.
it was more to get there a couple of days and then get out of there. So that was my first experience with the Escobar investigation.
Hmm.
And for me, I was stationed in Miami in '87, and in '91 is when I was transferred to Colombia. I got there in June 1991. The funny thing about that, Vinny, is I came to the embassy on a Monday, and Wednesday or Thursday that week is when Escobar surrendered to his custom-built prison.
Hmm.
And I like to tell people, well, hell, you heard Murphy's in town, you might as well give it up.
Yeah.
He knew we were going to catch him, but
Carries some weight, but yeah.
and that's a joke. That's a big joke. But it's funny because when you go to these assignments, especially overseas, you don't know what cases you're going to be
Yeah.
working on. So I got there, and it takes a week or two to get acclimated into the embassy and get your clearances and all that stuff. And got to be friends. Javier had a partner at that time named Gary Sheridan, and Gary and I kind of got to be friends right off the bat because we had some mutual acquaintances in the law enforcement
Yeah.
culture,
Yeah.
and then got to know Javier through Gary. But this was also kind of strange because when Escobar surrendered, I thought, well, that's great, man. The world's biggest cocaine, trafficker is in custody. But what I saw from Javier and Gary and everybody else in the embassy was disappointment. I mean, it was like everybody was ticked off. And, not knowing the background of all the things that they'd been through and all the friends they'd seen killed in the Colombian National Police and so
Hmm.
forth, you learn that. So and luckily
So they wanted him.
I'm
They
not the
wanted him
brightest
dead.
bulb on the tree, but I'm smart enough to keep my mouth shut and learn.
Yeah, yeah. So just to clarify, they
So
were upset because they wanted them dead.
right,
Yeah.
they wanted the opportunity to capture
Mm.
him,
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh
whether that
yeah.
was dead or
Yeah.
alive.
Yeah. Hmm.
So and then eventually Gary got he got promoted and transferred up to Barranquilla, and that's when Javier and I actually became full-time partners in 1991. And here we are in 2021, and we're still partners, just in a different business
Yeah.
now.
And still talking about that exact assignment probably every single hour of every day.
Yeah, we kind of tell people we got to work one big case that's been blown out of proportion by narcos, but it's paid off for us in the
Yeah.
long run.
Well. Yeah. I mean, and I have some of those notes later on. I think I sent you guys. It's kind of like it was. Of course, it's glamorized now, right? It's like anything that the Italian mafia thing's been glamorized for decades, right? This has been glamorized, and it's. I think we lose scope of, and I know I'm jumping ahead a little bit here, but we do lose scope of that. These are real people, real lives, real families destroyed, countries.
Right.
I mean, and you personally have lost good friends. So it's like, even me being a layman looking at the show, I thought the show was fantastic. I thought Netflix, did a great job. We'll talk later about, where are the wild inaccuracies, where do their artistic license just take them? But I'm sure there's plenty of that. But yeah, it's one of those things we kind of keep reminding ourselves that, this is pure evil, right? How, and it's not just, I get asked, not asked, I'm always in these topics with the Italian thing because of the mafia and my name's Vinny and all the stupid stereotypes. But, and you think about it a little deeper, and it's like, yeah, the mafia was glamorized too, and Pablo was glamorized, and I know folks loved him, right? I mean, that's like is that a true statement? Like the Medellin, I mean, the town folks loved him. I mean, I heard the Robin Hood analogies. Is that an accurate analogy? I mean, I don't think so, based on what that, but I mean, that's
Well,
Go
yeah,
ahead,
yeah.
JP.
Some people in Medellin did love him. I mean, he had a following. He had I guess, a cult following, if you want to say
yeah,
that. But overall in Colombia, he was not liked because of all the atrocities that he did and all the terrorism that he introduced into the country of Colombia. But again, there was a faction, and you know what? When you mentioned the Robin Hood, we always get that question. Well,
yeah,
and the way we answer it is, yeah, you know what? He did give a lot to the city. He did build houses, hospital, churches, but he always expected something in return.
yeah,
And I tell people Robin Hood didn't blow up a commercial airline, which 107
mm,
people were killed. Robin Hood didn't kill the next president of Colombia, which
right,
Pablo Escobar killed. A guy by the name of Luis Carlos Galan was going to be the next president. Escobar had him shot, blew up buildings, blew up, tons of other, properties, killed. We put the number at 10 to 15,000 people that he killed. One of
mm,
his sicarios, a guy by the name of Popeye, got out of prison about 5 years ago, and that was his most trusted sicario. Popeye claims that the number
mm,
is closer to 50,000 people that Pablo Escobar
Mhm.
killed. So Pablo Escobar, please believe us, was no Robin Hood.
yeah.
Right.
Doesn't fit the Robin Hood description, at least from the tales that I've read. Yeah,
Mm.
and I think here, and I had seen an interview you both had done a while ago, and something you guys kept reiterating was, and I don't believe the show really, even just some reading I've done in the show that, obviously the Netflix show, it didn't really convey this to me, at least not truly explicitly, but the brutality of him and his regime was, I mean, next level. Things that I feel like, being a layman, seemed unprecedented. I mean, they're always brutal, right? You always hear this is not a peaceful set of domain we're talking about for drug cartels, but his seemed to be next level, willing to do absolutely anything. Nobody was off limits. I mean, true, right?
Absolutely true. It was horrendous. It was, that's why we coined Pablo Escobar as the world's first narco
Mm,
terrorist. People say, well, what is a narco terrorist? Well, it's just basically a narcotics trafficker that employs terroristic
yeah.
activities in his drug business. But I mean, what it equates to is kidnappings, torture, murders, just unbelievable violence. dismembering bodies and dissolving them in oil and
Mm-hmm.
acid. He just took it to a whole new level. Javier was on a phone call when they were listening to Escobar, and he heard the tape where Pablo's talking to his wife, and he's on the phone. Hey, honey, how are you? How's the kids? All this, and in the background, you can hear a guy screaming where he's being tortured,
Mm.
and Pablo tries to cover the phone up with his hand, and Javier heard him. He shouted, he's like, "Cover his mouth." And then shortly after that, you hear no more screaming. So and then he's right back to his wife, like, "Yeah, I miss you guys. I'll come and see you when I can," that kind of thing.
Wow.
We've got photographs of things that he did to human bodies that nobody should ever
Mm.
see. It's just like, I think it's kind of like the Mexicans now, or the Mexican drug cartels are trying to outdo the violence that was done by the Colombian traffickers. It seems like there's this grotesque competition out there,
Mm.
to see who can pull off the most horrendous, the most shocking um, torture. I mean, we've seen the photographs are out there on the internet where you see them roll the severed heads out onto a dance floor.
Mm.
Um, well, I just seen pictures that I don't even want to describe to you.
Right.
They're just so terrible.
Yeah, yeah, and that seemed to be his tactic, right? I mean, just if you either was it silver or lead, that was that like me either take the bribe or I'm going to shoot you, basically want to kill you. Is that
Yeah,
did he coin that?
yeah, that was called "Quieres plata or plomo?" You want a bullet or you want some money? And basically, the way that worked, and the first time they employed it was on a judge in Medellin. So two of Escobar's
Huh.
sicarios walk into the judge's office. They go straight to the judge. Say, "Judge, sir, we are here on behalf of Mr. Pablo Escobar. And in this briefcase, there's $100,000." They told the judge. "Judge, all you got to do is drop the charges against our boss, and this money is yours." Obviously, the judge went ballistic. He kicked them out. The next day, guess what happened? They killed the judge, his wife, and his kids.
Mm.
So that was plata or plomo. From there on, people started accepting those briefcases. And you know what I tell people? I do not blame them for accepting those briefcases. It's either they're gonna kill your family, or you're gonna get some money rewarded by Pablo Escobar. So that was that tactic, and it was coined by Pablo Escobar, plata
Yeah.
or plomo.
Yeah, you hear, you hear, well, morality, ethics, I would never cave to that, stand on your principles. But if, like you just articulated, Javier, if the options are take the money and maybe you'll never see me again, maybe you will, I don't know, but take the money, you can do good stuff with it, whatever you want to do with it, or I'm going to
Mhm.
start killing your entire family before I kill you, but you'll die too. But you'll see all your, it's like the order is important too. It's not like you're going to die and then so that in that case, it's not even a bribe. You have no choice.
No,
It's like you're getting
not and
paid
you
to
have
save
no
your
choice.
family.
Right, and you have no choice. And this was serious. I mean, this was once that happened. Like I said, they did it, and people already knew. Hey, if you get offered money, you better take it because
Mm,
you will lose your
Mhm.
family. And who's going to do that? Pablo
right,
Escobar did
right, right,
that.
right. Well, so yeah, so that gets me a little bit into thinking, and I think the show did a good job of this, with Kiki, Camarena. Now he seemed to be a big part, and I think I heard one or both of you had said when you were consulting with the show, you made a point to that Kiki had to be a figure there and an important figure. Is that true? Okay.
Yes. And that, I mean, quite honestly, that's one of the reasons we think we survived down there. I mean, there's 3 or 4 reasons that we believe how we survived down there, and one of them was Kiki, because the Mexicans and the Colombians saw the response of the United
Mm,
States when one of our agents was killed, and the Mexican feds, they tried to throw a scapegoat. They threw some little, a mule that was murdered. They said, well, that's the guy that killed Kiki, and everybody knew that wasn't
mm,
true. So our president stepped up and shut down the border between the United States and Mexico, and it took less than an hour for the Mexican government to turn around and say, okay, okay, we'll get back in the investigation. So if you equate that on out into the future, you know, Pablo put bounties on Javier and I, on all DEA agents down there, $300,000 a piece.
mm.
Back then, 25 years ago, that was a heck of a lot of
Yeah.
money. And but here's the truth of it. I mean, if they had killed one of us, based on how the United States responded when Kiki was murdered, they didn't want to see that,
That was a
because
deterrent.
keep in
Yeah.
mind, their whole business is about making money. So now if the United States really got serious and, shut down the borders and really, really employed this war on drugs, it's, by the way, is one of the biggest misnomers we've ever heard. Um, they knew business would dry up for a while, and they're in the business to make money. So we think that had a lot to do. And we wanted Kiki memorized or memorialized in the show. So that's why there is a statement in season 1 or 2 about Kiki.
Yeah.
But then if you look at Narcos Mexico, they did a whole story
Yeah,
on him.
yeah,
So that's
yeah,
pretty good.
yeah. I thought it came across for me, and I didn't know the story prior to watching it, so it definitely resonated. And just for the listeners, just give a quick background on who he was.
Yeah, I'll go ahead. Yeah, Kiki
Sure.
Camarena was one of our agents who was assigned to Guadalajara, Mexico. And while in Guadalajara, he started investigating a cartel that was sending tons of drugs into the United States. So the cartel found out about it. The leader of the Mexican cartel is a guy by the name of Rafael Caro Quintero.
Mm.
And they kidnapped him at lunch one day. We started searching. We could not find him. We knew he was gone. We saw his car. So anyway, long story short, and it is a very sad story. Basically, the cartel kidnapped him, and then they started torturing him. They would not let him die. They would give him adrenaline shots so they could hit him some more, torture him, find out exactly what the DEA was doing.
Mm.
And like I said, we could not find the body. The Mexicans were not Mexican, authorities were not helping us. So, the president at that time closed the border down. Can you imagine closing the, Mexican and U.S. border? Because we
Yeah.
weren't getting the cooperation. We finally got the cooperation. We did find his body. They told us where it was, and it was just a disaster. Like I said, the proof is, tortured,
Yeah.
not letting him die. So that's a big deal with DEA, and like I said, we put all the forces, like Steve said, into Mexico until we arrested all those people. And bottom line, Rafael Caro Quintero escaped from Mexican prison. I think we're going, man, wow, I think about 10 years now. He's
Mm.
on the run
I don't
again.
even remember.
He's on the run again. We're still looking for him, but he's out there. So that's another travesty of justice we're facing.
Hmm. Yeah.
And
Yeah. I
Enrique
did hear.
Camarena is known for, we started the Red Ribbon campaign, which a lot of
Mhm.
people in America know what that's about. Say
Yeah.
no to
Yeah.
drugs, Red Ribbon on his behalf, on his memory.
Yeah. Hmm. Yeah. And which just told the story about Pablo. Like nobody was off limits, right? I mean, just
Right, right.
well, and I feel like that Kiki event was that in a sense unprecedented. Where I mean, it was like we didn't. I want you almost didn't think he would cross that line. So then I'm thinking for Steve, you, Javier, you, it's like thinking, okay, well, where now you made a good point earlier, which I wasn't really thinking of when I was kind of doing some reading prior. I was thinking, well, you guys must have been scared shit for your lives because obviously no one's off limits. You have families, or I'm not sure what your family situation was at the time, but regardless, you had your own life. I know that. And, now he's showing, well, no one's off limits. It wasn't, the old days, you see, or maybe just a layman's perspective, it was like, well, if you're with the opposing, government, you're kind of safe because you don't want to get that government that escalated against you. You want to just stay. There's some line, whatever you want to call it, that most of these weird wackos stay under, but he had no problem going over that line. But so I mean, scared of your own lives? I mean, did that, or like you said before, was that precedent helping your kind of, I guess, mental state, if you will?
I'll tell you what, the first night that my wife and so Columbia was considered a no children post. You could have a spouse there, but you couldn't have any kids. And I had 2 sons from a prior marriage. So they stayed back in the States with their
Yeah.
mom. So Bakani went down with me, and the first night we're there, you're apprehensive anyway. You're very anxious. You're in this new country, and Our Spanish wasn't the best at that time, and in the middle of the night we heard gunfire outside the window of this boarding house we were staying in, and I rolled over and grabbed my 9mm on the nightstand, and the next thing he heard was machine gun fire. And Connie and I just kind of looked at each other. And we thought, well, what the heck did we get ourselves into this time?
Yeah.
And you just lay the gun down. But Javier was there for 3 years before I got there. He had to move twice. He had to change apartments because Pablo's people found out where he lived in Bogota. Now you'd think they'd have said, Javier, we're sending you back to the United States for your own safety, but that's not the way it is in DEA. And I doubt Javier would have gone back if he'd
Right.
had the option. He changed apartments and you kept on
Yeah,
working.
yeah. You guys all are I feel like of that same mold. You're like, we're not. No, screw you. I'll move and I'll
Me,
continue tracking you down. Which I'm eternally grateful. My family, our country. That's there's a debt of gratitude there. I won't blow all that at you right now to make it mushy. But and I'm sure you get that. You should, but because it's you're just doing stuff that just scares the hell out of me talking about. Never mind. So thank you. But we'll move on. But oh man.
And if I can add, Vinny,
Yeah,
when
yeah.
you asked, were you scared? I said, we were always scared, man. And
yeah,
there was a point where Steve and I would say to each other, you know what? Let's just let Pablo Escobar surrender again. That way, we all go home. That way,
Mm,
people will not die. But then, like I said, once you see your friends, fellow police officers, citizens get killed, it was
yeah,
just like we can't surrender, but we can't give up. But there's plenty of times we wanted to give up, and it's just that toll, that human toll that
mm.
it takes on a person. So yeah, it was a little rough there.
Did
and after he escaped, when we started the search block again, that's when Javier and I moved to Medellin for 18 months, and we lived the Colombian National Police, and we had the U.S. Army's Delta Force, we had the U.S. Navy SEAL Team 6 down there working with us, but they were all under orders. We were all under orders to stay in the base to not go out. But Javier and I knew we couldn't do our job if we did that.
right?
So they obeyed orders. Well, we didn't. We went out. We tell everybody we broke policies and procedures and rules every day down there. We never broke the law, though. We kind of looked at policies and procedures as suggestions anyway.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
I'd do your job, but we're going out on the Huey gunships every day on raids. We're going out to Colombian police to interview informants, doing surveillance, collecting intelligence. Uh,
Mm,
Meeting. We met some really, really bad people down at that time. We met one trafficker in Bogota named Mickey Ramirez. We showed up with our bodyguard. He showed up with an army.
yeah,
We were severely outgunned that day, but it wasn't there to. I guess thank the good Lord, he wasn't there to hurt us, and we survived. But it was the people that you talked to that really had good information on Escobar and his organization were all murderers.
yeah.
So it's not like you get to go to the church and talk to the priest or
Right,
somebody,
right.
and that's going to be your informant. You got to deal with the worst of the
Yeah.
worst out there.
Mm, yeah. Now, so yeah, okay. And you mentioned something earlier. I mean, Javier, how personal did this get for you both? I mean, it starts off as and I'm kind of this is conjecture in my head, but it starts off as an assignment. You're doing a job. You're doing your job, but you want to do the right thing, and that's part of your job. But then, does it click over to get personal after so many losses and all the stuff you're seeing and your close friends? And I mean,
Yeah, but it does get personal, and like I said, and because of our good friends we had, and I'll always remember everything started with I guess Steve Silhana, right? And I was partnered with Gary Sheridan, the first captain. We were investigating a group out of Monteria, which is in the Medellin type of area. Anyway, traffickers working for Pablo Escobar. So we sent this captain. I'll never forget Captain Rojas, young guy, great guy. Him and his and a sergeant who sent him up there just preliminary, just to get some information. And the guy
mm,
never came back. We later found out that they found out the crooks found out he was a police officer investigating them, so again they tortured him, cut up his body, and that's really what kicked off the search on Escobar. From there, it got personal because friends of ours. Then at the search blog, We had like three good police officer friends of Steve and I get killed. So it was personal, and then to me it was always when Escobar started with a car bomb, started with bombing of the buildings. It's like, why all the innocent people? Why are you killing? These innocent people have nothing to do with you, Pablo Escobar. But so Pablo Escobar wanted as many bodies killed as possible to show Colombia that he was strong, to show Colombia that they had to negotiate with him, and in the end, that's what worked. When Colombia accepted that surrender, and I'm sure we'll talk about that here, a little bit more
Yeah.
evidently. But it was the human toll of yeah, personal, yes, because of all your friends getting killed, and the innocent people who had nothing to do with this getting killed by Pablo Escobar for being at the wrong place at the wrong time.
Yeah. 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 It just seemed like he didn't, well, and something you said, Steve, I mean, you said you kind of, broke some policies and rules, but kept within the law. I mean, it's almost like your hands are tied a lot when you're going. You're literally there's two sides. Obviously, he's got as effectively as much money as you in the U.S. government, because obviously not as much. If you compare apples to apples, but as much as he needs to do anything he wants. Period. Right. So he's got that. He's got absolutely no boundaries as to what he'll do. No rules, no policies, no lines he can't cross. And then yet, DEA is trying to uphold the code of morality and the things that we all, most of us hold dear. How is that an even fight? And I guess, were there things that the agency had to do to kind of, well, let's tweak this here, tweak that there? I mean, I don't want to sell anyone out here, but you gotta bend a little at some point, I would imagine.
Well, I got a couple thoughts on that. One is the war on drugs. I mean, the United States declares this war on drugs, and so we're going after the world's first narco terrorist who became the world's most wanted criminal. You remember the show America's Most Wanted? They came to Colombia and did one episode in their entire history. They've only done one episode of the world's most wanted. And Javier and I took the camera crew up to Medellin and let them film different places, and had the police set up roadblocks so they could film things like that. But a guy who built a business in which he was responsible for as much as 80% of the cocaine in the world. I mean, think about that. But you're running a podcast. Wouldn't you like to have 80% of the podcast listeners listen to your podcast, right?
Currently, I only have 75.
I mean, it's just
that would be nice. Yeah, to get to 80.
We got 77 now. You got me in Javier.
No, you're right. That puts it into perspective. Though. That's crazy. That is absolutely crazy.
So this is who we're going after in this war on drugs. When you declare a war, you get your allies lined up, your troops, you bring in all the supplies and material that you're going to need and so forth, and you go in to win. Well, here we are going on this war on drugs, and what do we send? Javier Pena, Steve Murphy. Now, does that sound like a war? Just to put it in perspective. Now, we had a lot of backup, back through the embassy, the other agencies, the analysts, headquarters, and so forth. But two guys, boots on the ground up there. So it just got to be, it kind of put it in perspective for you. We'd go out on operations. You'd come back in the evening and, you've had your rice and potatoes for your dinner, and you might be having a cold beer, and you're thinking, holy cow, there are no other DE agents in the world doing what we're doing right now. What the heck are we doing here?
Right.
And then the other thing was, they told us we couldn't leave the base. They knew what we were doing because they wanted information.
Yeah.
They being the Americans. Yeah. So they would tell us, listen, when you guys go out, you cannot wear any clothing that looks like police or military. So we always wore jeans and tennis shoes and either a polo shirt or, some comfortable button-up shirt. But for weapons, we were only allowed to carry our 9mm pistols. We could not carry any long gun. We couldn't carry a rifle or a shotgun. And you're going out on raids. I mean, you're coming on these helicopters, raiding these ranches and so forth. And, this is Escobar. He's got a lot better weapons than we've got. And here you are with your little 9mm going, what am I going to do with this? Tick somebody off with it?
Here's a bunch of rocks. Throw these if they look mean. Yeah.
It was almost that bad, but I don't know. What's that say about us? I guess we're idiots that we did it. I don't know.
No, I mean, I guess, yeah, that is crazy. But yeah, so you think with the war on drugs, you just think it was a PR statement, not lowercase w
Yeah,
at the most war, right?
that's a good way to put it.
Oh, it's crazy. I mean, what? And I always get this is what always. I mean, the story is incredible. I mean, but I always wonder, you know, what do you think made him tick? I mean, you can ask the same questions about the Hitlers, the Maos, the Stalins, the people that are knowingly, eradicating mass amounts of humanity. I mean, it's just there's no other way to say
Mhm.
it. You can say to what end is it can't be just about money and power. It has to be more than that because there's got to be. What do you think really was the motivation for him? I mean, this is getting into his head a little bit, but
Yeah, the motivation, and remember his ultimate, when he first started off, he started off with 2 kilos at a time. He said, you know what, this may be profitable. And before it was all over, he was controlling 80% of the cocaine that was reaching the world. Not the US, but the whole world.
world.
80% of the cocaine market. And at that time, that kilo was going for 60, 70, $80,000. So 2,500 kilos on a daily basis. I mean, he was making billions.
Mm,
And first, he wanted to be the president of Colombia. That was his motivation. They found out he was a trafficker, so he was an assistant congressman. So he got kicked out. But if you look at his psychic, if you look at his, that what made him tick, he had the money of the world, right?
yeah.
And if you look at that self surrender when he surrendered into his custom made prison, right? 5 year prison sentence. You know, if you were the world's most violent, profitable, richest trafficker, and they gave you 5 years, you're not going to screw it up, right? Hey, five
Right.
years,
Right.
you're in a
In your own personally built paradise for the most part.
yeah,
That
in your own personally built
right.
paradise country club setting. And it's just that ego. That ego he could not control. And basically, what led to his is to his escape was he thought a couple of his henchmen were stealing money from him, which were not. And
Mm,
that's what prompted, when he killed two of his best friends inside the prison, that's what prompted us to go to the Colombian government and say, hey, this guy's out of control. And that's what prompted that night where we went in after him, the Colombian military, to move him from his comfortable, country club into a real jail cell, and he escapes.
mm,
So that's what led to the other search where Steve and I show up. In essence, the guy had it made. The guy had it made. Was going to do 4 more years. He's going to be a free man. Kept all his assets, but he could not control that ego where he thought people were stealing from him, and these two guys had not stolen from him.
mm. Interesting. Yeah, I did read somewhere, or when you had said it in a prior interview that one of his motivations, or it's kind of circling around what you just said, Javier, but was he was really afraid of extradition. He certainly didn't want
Yes,
to be sent
yeah,
back to the U.S.
and
Right?
in the whole war, and I'm glad you brought that up, Vinny. The
Yeah. Yeah.
whole terrorism of Escobar was based on extradition. He did not
Mm,
want to be extradited to the United States. They had he formed a club called the Extraditables, Los Extraditables, and the main headline on his paperwork was, "I prefer a tomb in Colombia than a jail cell in the United States." So
mm,
in this terrorist campaign, they, like I said, they blow up cars with the car bombs. There would always be leaflets left behind saying, "The extraditables did it." The extraditables was Pablo Escobar. That's all it was, referring
mm,
to
Hmm.
Colombia. So he did not want to get extradited. That was the whole crux of Escobar's war against the rest, the Colombia.
mm. Yeah, that's. Yeah, I did read that, and I guess, I mean, I
Yeah.
guess did he think he just could because he knew he couldn't corrupt the U.S. government, like he
Right.
couldn't do, I mean,
Yeah, I mean, look at the Chapo cases. There's lots of
yeah,
other. Mexicos in Mexico. They're living in a country club, and once you get to the U.S., that goes away. That's not going to happen in the U.S. You're not going to live in a
Yeah.
mansion. You're not going to escape. You're not going to have women come in. You're not going to have a phone to do your own, trafficking business. So that's what he's
Right.
not.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Um, now, as this thing starts wrapping up, right? As I mean, you start. No, so the years. Remind me now. We're talking about you all started 88 to 9. When did you start, Steve? Again? When did you guys join forces? 89.
Yeah. No, and Javier got there in 88. I got there in
91. Okay.
91. He escaped in June 92, and he was killed December 93.
93. Okay. Now I
Yeah.
should know this, but who was there when he died?
Well, if you watch the Narcos series, it says that I was there, but I was not.
Okay.
That was a Colombian National Police operation. I was back at the base
Okay.
and came out after the fact. So that's the truth of how that happened.
And I
I
was
should
out
believe
of
you,
town.
not the Narcos Hollywood series. Is that so?
Yeah. Well, what we've learned about Hollywood is, you don't let the facts get in the way of
Of
a good
course,
story.
no. Hey, you were great. So I my head, you were there, and it was awesome. You were fantastic.
Oh, yeah. You know what? And we love the Narcos series, so we don't mean to sound derogatory about it, but it's just not all true.
Yeah. No, artistic licenses, it's a thing. You now. So, and that gets to a big question. And I thought it was like settled, but I don't think it was. Just, and you guys can tell me, like, how was he actually killed? Right? There's the whole three rumors, the three theories. Either one, the Colombian police killed him. One, he was killed by U.S. Special Forces, or three, he committed suicide. I heard you guys your opinion before, but for our viewers, what's your take?
Well, so the theory about the U.S. Special Forces, could they have done that? There's the theory is that they had a sniper that shot him through the ear, at a mile away. In my opinion, yes, they could have done that because they're that good. I mean, we worked and
Sure.
lived with these guys for 18 months. We have the highest praise for Delta Force and SEAL Team 6. I mean, we've even done some work with SEAL Team 6 after retirement from DEA. So
Right.
we have the utmost respect for those guys. In fact, we tell the world if we're ever kidnapped, that's who we want to come and get us.
Yeah.
Because we've seen how good they are.
Oh no, they'll tell you.
But
They'll
the
tell you
truth
where
is,
on the earlobe they're going to hit you, not just if they.
Oh yeah.
So, yeah.
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 But the truth is, it was not them. And people say, well, how can you say that? Well, because as the operation is going down in the base, I'm in the room with all the U.S. operators. I think we just finished lunch, and and you just go over and it's nice to have some fellow Americans to talk to.
Right.
And we had a lot in common, and you're just kind of shooting the breeze there. So I know exactly where they were. And again, not taking anything away from those guys, because they are true heroes in our book.
Sure. They just
the other
weren't there.
theory,
Because I think you had said earlier they were told to stay on base. Correct. Yeah.
And you know what? If they had been allowed to go out there initially, when we first started the manhunt and do their job, we truly believe that in 3 months or less, Escobar would have been caught or killed.
Yeah.
But politics got in the way. So the second theory is that about suicide, and that's something that his son started. He said, his son says, "Oh, my dad told me that, if the cops ever get me, this gun, this 9mm holds 13 rounds, 12 for them, 1 for me. They'll never take me alive." Well, that's a great theory to throw out there. I guess a great legacy for your dad. I don't know what the hell he's trying to do, to be honest with you, but it's not true. It's not true, because he was killed with a 223 round in the ear, not a 9mm. And Pablo had 2 9mm pistols. That's what he was shooting at the cops. So that's simply not true. The truth of it is, it was the Colombian National Police. They located on their own. They found Pablo Escobar that day. They initiated a raid. They used det cord to blow the front door off of this townhouse. When they went in and ordered Escobar to surrender, he started shooting at them. So that's where the gun battle started. And basically, he started a gun battle that he couldn't win, and he lost that day. So no doubt, there's not an inkling of a doubt in either of our minds that who killed Pablo Escobar. It was Colombian National Police. And we make a big deal about telling that. I'm glad you brought up about where I was, because the true heroes of this whole thing are the Colombian National Police. They took their country back from this piece of trash. you know, and we promote that every show we do. We're going into our sixth year of our world tour. Of course, last year was horrible because of COVID, and we're just now starting to get invitations for later this year. But every show we do around the world, no matter where we are, we always make sure the Colombian National Police get the credit that they earned and deserve.
And if I can add to that, you know, they would always tell us, guys, we get criticized, we get blamed for the cocaine problem, for setting the cocaine. Don't take this away from us. And and we always told them we will always tell the truth, like Steve said. They are the
Hmm.
real heroes against Pablo Escobar.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
Well, yeah, good win for them. I mean, their country
Yeah,
suffered the
yeah.
most. So, and
Yeah.
who knows how many countless they've lost on their side, on the good side. Um, um,
Thousands of police officers,
yeah.
like I said, thousands of innocent people for being at the wrong place at the wrong time.
Yeah. And, just being a ignorant person in this context, in the United States, and it's much more cushy, obviously, even in the worst part of the country compared to like a Colombia. So it's easy to just take for granted. But, you even think that the Colombian authorities get a bad name, in my opinion. And I don't know if I'm not going to make a claim as if it's justified or not, but you just think, oh, they're all corrupt. They're all the same, quote unquote, as the cartels. Well, what you guys kind of have been laying out is, well, there's not a lot of options for a lot of these folks, right? When you have someone like Pablo in power, where it's the whole, silver
Yeah,
or lead thing, it's like,
yeah.
well,
You go
maybe
back,
these aren't bad humans, right?
right? And let me just say, Vinny, at the beginning, during the first search, there was some corruption, but it wasn't as bad as everybody thinks. And you know what the corruption was at the beginning? It was Pablo Escobar getting to the family members of the police who were from Medellin.
Mm,
In other words, we never realized it. So he was threatening their family, say, "Hey, tell your son that he better call to warn me if they're coming after me. If not, I'll kill your son, and I'm gonna come after your family." So from there on, we only brought in people that were not from Medellin. We brought them in from Bogota, so we learned right away.
yeah.
But that was one
Mm,
of his tactics.
mm, yeah. Crazy. I mean, so what going back, jump into the Netflix show. I mean, you guys were consultants on the show for on all 3 seasons, or how did that work?
Well, they hired us. Um, they bought the life rights to our Pablo Escobar story from us. Nobody told us it was Netflix until after we signed the contract, because we probably would have asked for more money. But and everybody thinks we got wealthy from that show. We didn't. We were paid consultants for the first 2 seasons only. And I'll be honest with you, from what they paid me each year, and they paid Javier and I the same, in conjunction with my government retirement check annually, I still made more working as a DEA agent. So it wasn't all the money everybody thinks it is,
And last time I
But
checked, working as a DEA agent is not like you're not pulling in $500,000 a year or anything else. So
Yeah.
you're not going to be independently wealthy. You're not going to go hungry, but you're not going to be independently wealthy
yeah,
either.
yeah,
Um, but after those first 2 years, they've continued to call us, and we make introductions. And each episode or each series, each season has real people portrayed that were DEA agents. So like season 3 was Javier and Chris Feistel. Chris Feistel was
mm,
one of the lead agents on the Cali cartel. Season 4 was about Kiki Camarena and his boss Jaime Kirkendall, so there are real agents portrayed in every season of Narcos, in which I guess this year season 6 is coming out, and we're hearing rumors this may be the last season. So, um, that's how that all happened.
wow, yeah,
I mean, we had to retire from DEA because you're not allowed to be in government service and then have a side job.
right, yeah,
So,
yeah,
and we were coming up on mandatory retirement age anyway, so it just all worked out. It's amazing how it all worked
yeah,
out for us.
yeah. Did you have any idea? I mean, first of all, I didn't know there was 6 seasons. How many seasons are there? I must be way off in what I thought. I thought there was 3.
Well, there's 3 on Narcos.
Oh,
So the first 2 are Escobar, and then the third is Cali.
okay.
And then 4, 5, and 6 they call Narcos Mexico.
Oh, okay. I gotta. Okay. I think I have some TV to
Yeah.
watch. I think I missed the whole.
Yeah, but six hasn't come out yet, right?
No,
Okay.
They're
right.
filming
Right.
that right now. And they're alluding that that's going to be the next show,
Okay.
season six, and that
Gotcha.
may
Gotcha.
be the last one. What we're hearing.
Mhm.
Did you guys have any idea that the show was going to be as big as it was? Like, did you
Yeah,
think, oh, this is
not
going to be
not at
crap?
all.
Or
In fact, when it's a true story, when it comes out, man, I'm watching it, and I call Steve. I said, "Man, no one's gonna watch this. Yeah, no one's gonna watch this. It's gonna be a big flop." And then all of a sudden, it's like, what? It had a world appeal. It had a
yeah,
world appeal.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, and it was right away. We ordered another season. Netflix ordered another season, which the season is about 10 shows a season.
yeah,
So obviously, we got a little bit more money on season two also. But nobody thought, like I say, it was going to be this successful. And there's a great story that Steve and I are at a Hollywood premiere party, and there's like the number two guy from Netflix is there, and I guess I'll let because he told Steve, won't you? Yeah, he can say that.
Yes. So, I mean, it was a pretty wild party, a lot of alcohol, and I don't drink alcohol anymore.
wah, wah.
So, we're talking, and Netflix is the most secretive company in the world. They won't tell you anything about their numbers or
Yeah, I've heard
anything.
that. Yeah,
And
yeah.
so I talked to this guy and I said, hey, how's Narcos doing in the Netflix world? And he's like, well, we're doing really good. He was just very evasive with his
Yeah.
answers. So I let the party go on for a couple more hours, and he was getting schnockered. And I went back to him and I said, hey, so in the realm of things, how is Narcos rated amongst all the shows in Netflix? And he gets this conspiratorial look on his face, and he kind of looks to the left and he looks to the right, and he's like, all right, don't tell anybody. He said, you ever heard of the show House of Cards? I said, everybody's
Right.
heard of
Yeah.
House of Cards. He said, that's our number one show of all times. Narcos is knocking on the door.
Wow.
Now, is that true? I don't know. But a few months ago, we saw an article come out in Time Magazine. We posted on our social media sites that Narcos is rated the fourth most popular original content series that Netflix has ever produced. So,
I mean, I believe it.
I mean, I've read articles where they said it's been viewed 60 million times. I don't know if that's true or not, but that's a lot of
I
viewers.
mean, everyone I know loves it. Everyone I know has seen it. So I believe it. It's possible. And that executive's kind of example was a little, hey, alcohol does some miraculous things when it's in terms of trying to get past any of those, people's fronts they put on. So it probably dipped into some.
Loosens
Yeah,
that tongue.
and he had a very specific example, the way he explained it. So
Yeah.
I believe that. Either way, it doesn't matter. You're obviously. I mean, I'm talking to you now because of not because you're just a handsome dude walking through Ashburn, Virginia, Steve, but you're because I this right. I'm like Narcos. Wait, I know what Narcos. It's just
Well, that's the funny thing too, Vinny. You can ask anybody in the world. Do you know who Pablo Escobar is? Oh yeah. He's that Colombian drug dealer. You know who Javier Pena Steve Murphy is? Who?
Who? No, that's the guy who delivers my mail.
Yeah. So he's the guy that sits in Panera every morning and has coffee.
Yeah.
Oh,
Well, I mean, again, all this stuff sounds cliche and soft, but all the heroes, the true heroes, no one knows, right? I mean, unless there's some Hollywoody thing that blows them up, and here we are, right? I mean, it's just every SF guy or SF gal or whatever out there that they're just the unsung heroes, right? And you don't want the accolades. That's what makes a lot of you folks the way you are. You don't do it for that. Otherwise, you do a job that would probably make you 100 times more money, and you'd be doing nothing. Like just I don't know, just with half the celebrities out there that literally do nothing, just get seen and have more money than God. It's like, what are you doing here? What exactly are you contributing to the world? So it's just par for the course, I guess.
And if I can add, Vinny, just
Yeah.
a tidbit. This is just one of those tidbits that happened. They were not. They were not going to use our real names on the show. Then all of a sudden, remember, we get an email or we get a call says, "Guys, you know what?" They just said, "Can we use your real names?" And we said, "Yeah, of course. We don't care, right?" And that's what It was just it wasn't even planned. The guy, like I said, it was a call later on. Can we use the real names? And we're in show business. We're not. He said, yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
so, which has helped our speaking presentations,
Yeah.
our lecture series. So that
Yeah,
was
it's closer to the I
move.
mean, it's closer to the show. It's
Right.
less, well, I was that guy named John Smith, and it's
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Right.
yeah. Cool. Well, what's next for you guys? What are you doing now? I mean, I know Steve, so I think Javier, Steve and I met Steve at coffee just real quick,
Right.
just to get to know him a while ago, and I think you told me a lot, Steve, about. I know COVID has messed up some things, but what do you guys have
Mhm.
going on, and what's going to continue as what could people expect going to this year, next year?
Well, we're if the demand is still there, we're going to continue our worldwide speaking tour, and be quite honest with you, we've already gotten probably a dozen
Mm,
invitations to speak later this year. Not all of them are going to pan out, to be honest with you, because people just don't. I guess people think we do this for free, and it's a business. But the corporate events and the law enforcement conferences are really big with us right now. We've been working on a project called The Lost Clipper, which involves the disappearance and murder of 15 Americans back in 1938 over in the South
mm.
Pacific. And we've been to the South Pacific, done some searching over there. I look at it as an adventure. I really like it.
Yeah.
But we believe we've tied that now to the disappearance of Amelia Earhart the previous year in 1937.
Really?
So we're trying to raise funds now to go back for our next trip over there and to take cadaver sniffing dogs. We've got right now. I think we've got 3 different potential TV projects in the works. And COVID is just, I mean, it's killing
Yeah.
us. COVID and the anti-law enforcement sentiment, because networks really don't want to pick up law enforcement shows right now. They call them justice programs. So we're waiting for that to calm down. But what we're really excited about is we're getting ready to launch our own podcast.
Oh, sweet.
So we're calling it Game of Crimes. Every show, like your show, Vinny, will have a guest on it. Not only good guys, we've got some bad guys coming on.
Yeah, awesome.
We've done a little series. We're in partnership with a guy named Morgan Wright, who lives in Ashburn as well, a good friend of mine. Morgan is kind of like the main host, and Javier and I are I don't know, I guess we're hosts also, right, JP? But we've done 12 different sessions going into depth on our careers and on the Escobar investigation, and we've never done that before. So that'll be there'll be a lot of stories in there, some serious, some funny
Yeah, yeah.
stories that we've never told before. Believe it or not even in our book.
Oh, very cool.
So we're in the negotiation phase right now with podcast hosting companies, and we're getting close. We're
Very
getting close
cool.
to it.
Yeah.
So we've already got, I think, 4 months of interviews recorded. So as soon as the agreement's in place, we're ready to
Oh,
launch.
sweet. I was going to ask you that. So you got all those recordings canned up, ready to go. Very cool.
We're
Yeah.
good. So it's been another learning experience. I mean, Javier and we don't know anything about all this.
Right.
We don't know anything about Hollywood. I'll be honest with you, I don't listen to podcasts. Although we get interviewed on an awful lot, and we're starting our own, so that'll probably change here soon. But all this is just, I look at this as a new adventure almost every day that you get to participate in, and it's a lot of fun. Life's good.
Yeah, I mean, you think post DEA life, you never would have probably imagined all this. This is pretty cool. I mean,
And when we do the presentations, we tell the real story of the search of Pablo Escobar. We have our own videos, our own photos. So we take the audience from the beginning. Basically, it's the rise and fall of Pablo Escobar, but we tell the truth. It's all part of history, and this is why And in there we interject leadership lessons. We interject like I said, working under stressful conditions. So that's why some of the corporate people will hire us.
Right.
Before COVID struck, our first 4 years, we averaged 75 appearances a year around the world.
Wow.
So I think I saw Javier more than I ever saw Connie during those 4 years.
Your wife, yeah.
Yeah, she keeps asking me when I'm going back on the road. I don't understand that.
Okay.
Trying to get rid of
you
me
hear every
already.
day is getting a little old. Yeah.
It's getting a little old.
And Steve mentioned, but we also got to plug our book. So
Yeah.
if you wanna, I mean, he knows where.
Yeah.
Yeah. You have it near you. Hold it up. Yeah.
So,
What's the name of it?
I don't have one here in front
There
of
it
me.
is.
I've got them. I'm in Florida right now. I've got them in boxes over here because we get orders. There you go.
I'll have links to all this in the show notes too.
Oh, okay.
So folks can just click boom.
Okay.
Yep. Wherever it is, I'll find it. Yeah. Very cool.
Right.
We wrote a book, Manhunters: How We Took Down Pablo Escobar. It's not just the Escobar story. We tell a little bit about our childhood, how we got into law enforcement, some other cases we worked on, and then it ends up with the Escobar story. Our website is www.deanarcos.com. You can go on there, and in fact, you can buy the book on our website. We've got it hardcover and paperback. It's the only place that you can buy our book to get an autographed copy, and we'll even add a personalized message in there, a short message if you'd like to have that done. Honestly, you can get it on Amazon cheaper than we sell it, but it won't be autographed.
Right.
And for our international fans, we offer it on eBay.
Okay.
So, between all that, I mean, and I didn't realize how much time being a podcaster takes doing the research and we did an interview with the former head of DEA yesterday. It took a little over 4 hours.
Wow.
So obviously that's going to be a multi-episode interview, but man, it keeps us in touch with a lot of old friends. We get to really promote the good things that DEA and other law enforcement agencies are doing around the world. And, we're interviewing a couple guys from Scotland Yard. We've already interviewed a Canadian police officer. Believe it or not, we've got a cop in Pakistan we're going to talk to. We've got some cops down in New Zealand and Australia. So it's not just DEA centric. It's like international law enforcement and what's going on. And we want people to hear the heroic stories that are going on all around the world.
Yeah. Oh, too cool. Yeah. I mean, interesting stuff, guys. Like I said, I'll put all this stuff in the show notes. So, listeners could just click and go. But thank you guys so much for your time. Did we cover everything we wanted to cover? I mean, anything else you want? I mean,
I think we're good, right, JP?
Okay. Well,
if you want to learn more about Game of Crimes, you can actually go to gameofcrimespodcast.com.
Okay.
And if you register your name there, we'll send you an email when we launch.
Awesome.
So
yeah,
you'll know.
And I'll ask you guys after we record, but you send me all that in an email. Everything you want in the show notes, I'll plop all that right in the show notes. So even if people do an audio or they're looking at the computer, they'll just click and go. So very cool.
Great.
Very cool.
All right.
Thank you guys so much.
Well, anyway, we want to thank you for having us on the show.
I appreciate your time. I mean,
it's an honor to be here.
Pleasure's mine, seriously.
Thank you, Andy. Appreciate it. Yes, sir.